Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This video comes in the follow-up of the latest video that I did on the CAIA exam and how to basically outperform your competition when it comes to your preparation for the exam, and also when it comes to get the necessary knowledge which is required for you to being able to tackle the exam successfully. And based on those insights, I believe that it is appropriate for me also to share what is the actual exam about, what are the key insights that I can share with you, and also some tips which I think it's going to be something that you can expect those tips to be a little bit obvious, but nonetheless there may be some viewers that may not be as aware of how it is to tackle one of these exams, so this video is also for them. But yeah, for the time being, this is it, and so let's move into it. So basically, I'm going to share the experience of the exam, of the level 2 exam. And why is that? Because I only did the level 2, as most of you know if you follow my channel, and in the previous videos I disclosed this countless times. Being already a CFA charter holder, you only have to tackle this level 2 exam of the CAIA in order to get the charter. Right? I don't have the charter because I didn't pay for the charter itself, but I completed the level 2 and I was able to skip the level 1. But these tips are also applicable for level 1, given the format of that particular exam. But for you guys who are about to tackle the exam in the near future or are considering doing so, I'm going to share here the structure and the format of the exam, of the level 2 exam. So as you can see right here, the morning session of the exam starts with 100 multiple choice questions, right? And you get as well a 30-minute break, and then you have 3 sets of constructive response questions. You get 3 sets. These 3 sets may have 3 or 4 questions for you to write the answers, and you also have 2 hours, 120 minutes to complete this particular section of the exam. So first of all, and I think this is a very important point to make, especially for those who already done the CFA, and this is my personal this was of course my personal experience. The format of the exam and the allotted time to make the exam or to complete the exam is somewhat strange. I know this is a controversial statement, all right? And why do I say this? Because you get 120 minutes, all right, to answer 100 multiple choice questions. These questions have 4 possible answers for the most part, and so the morning session 100 multiple choice questions has very little, I would say not very little, but has little time available for the candidate to mess around. All right. If you have 100 minutes to answer 100 questions, basically you have a little bit more than a minute to answer those questions. Now, those questions are freestanding, all right? These are not item sets such as you can see on the level 2 and the level 3 of the CFA, all right? But nonetheless, these questions are complex, all right? And so questions are complex, as they should. Make no mistake, as they should. But you have between looking at the answers and reading the questions, you have very, and I would say this with capital letters, very little time to think about the answers, about the correct answer, and if necessary, to make the necessary calculations to get that answer, right? And so you have to be very fast paced, very fast paced, very fast paced, and whenever you find, because this will happen, a question which you can't even get a rough idea of what the right answer is, just skip the question and move on to the next one. And why is that? This is very important, and I'm going to pause here, because whenever you find a question in which you don't find, or you don't, because in most cases, of course, you don't know the answer right off the bat, all right, you have to think about it a little bit, but since it's a multiple choice question, many times it's not really necessary for you to have a full grasp of the idea or the concept behind the question. And many times, by looking at the answers, you will recall the specific detail of the topic that it's being asked. And so you will see, oh, this is a topic, and I remember studying this, and so this might be the answer. And so in that case, you just run through the calculations. It is worth also to stop for a few seconds and think about it, to really make sure that it is the right answer, and then you answer the question and move on. But if after looking at the question, you read it, you look at after you read the question, you see the options or survey the information that is provided to you, and you look at the answers, at the possible answers, and you can't find a clue, the slightest clue of what the answer might be, this question will probably take you too much time to go through, all right, and to try to survey and determine what is the right answer, and so just move on. And why is that? Because it will take more time, and you cannot afford that kind of time. It's much better for you to run through the rest of the exam and then come back. The software used for the exam knows that you haven't answered that particular question, and so you will know at all times which answers you have not answered, and so you will be able to come back easily to that question and then try to find the answer. If you take too long, on the other hand, and you decide to stick with that particular question, and you try to find the answer, you will waste more time, and then you will have to make up for that time much later. All right, and so if you stick, or if you get stuck with that question and try to answer it without moving on quickly, even if you find the right answer, you will have to make up for the lost time in that question, and you may never be able to do that. And you are more likely to get nervous and eventually, and this is the worst scenario possible, run out of time before getting a shot to all the questions. All right, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is an absolute key for you to be able to successfully tackle the exam. All right, there are no two ways about it. And don't be afraid, just move on, because if you move on, if you continue to do it at a fast pace, eventually, and if of course, and assuming you are well prepared, you will be able, or you should be able, to find some time to get back. From my own experience, I can tell that and of course you already saw the marks that I have on my relative performance on the exam. I already showed them several times in the previous video, and it's also on one of my LinkedIn posts. Even myself as well prepared as I was, I finished all the questions, all right, but I could not find the right answer, or I could not definitely find with certainty, full certainty, and this is something that I recall very vividly, the right answer for 4 questions. And so what I just did, because I did not have time to answer them, what I just did was I just answered them not randomly, but I just answered them even without knowing the answer. I just had a hunch that, all right, this might be the right question, the right answer, so let's just do it. We have no more time to think about it. And this, of course, these 4 questions, I have to come back at the end of the exam, just before the time running out. I already went through all of them, and I had to come back to these 4. I could not find the right answer with full certainty, but because I was running out of time, I was on the last few seconds, I simply had to just put an answer, because you don't get any penalties or anything like that in your score by selecting a wrong answer, so you just select the answer you feel it's right and just finish the exam. And for me, I think the time limit is also very high, because if you compare, and I'm going to create here another slide, because in the case of the CFA, and this is where I've also felt a lot of difference, because in the CFA exam I always had time to finish all multiple choice questions and still review all the answers at least once and sometimes twice. With the CAIA exam, in the CAIA exam, the CAIA exam, I had no time to review my answers. And so that is why I believe that 120 minutes to answer questions of that kind of complexity. And keep in mind that, and I also mentioned this before in one of my previous videos, the multiple choice section of the exam, it's only about the chapters from 3 to 9. Alright, so you don't get the chapters 1 and 2. These are just texts that are available online, and those are mentioned to you for you to download and read it and study them to the best of your ability. But these ones are on the actual curriculum of the exam. All of these topics, the model, from the models to the volatility and complex strategies. And so I recall that I give a very, very big focus of my preparation to these, and I felt that because the multiple choice question has a weight in the exam of 70%, and this only has 30%, I felt that, alright, I may be able to pass by focusing on chapters 3 to 9 and neglecting a little bit the chapters 1 and 2. And so I was supposed to basically go through the multiple choice questions and basically ace this section of the exam. But of course, as it turned out later, I aced it in the actual scores on relative performance, but the time to actually do the exam was extremely tight. And so in case of a slightly less prepared candidate as I was, I believe that the candidate is going to struggle to go through all the questions and being able to answer them and have enough time to answer them appropriately, because on average a slightly less candidate may take more time than I did because I was very well prepared. And so in that case I am a strong believer that the time available for the first section of the exam is very, very tight, because you have the general the questions are a bit long. You have you have on a table or some numbers to review to be able to answer the question, and you need to process all that information to get to the right answer, and this takes time. And so sometimes 1 minute or a little bit more than a minute 1 minute and a quarter, or 1 minute and 10 seconds, 1 minute and a quarter, something like that, is sometimes not enough. You need more time, and you simply have to make up with a few very quick questions. You are just making up for the ones you took a bit longer to answer. All right, and so this means that you are not for the most part building kind of time bank that you can use at the end for a review, right? Of course, this was my experience. Sometimes it also may depend on the difficulty of the exam itself. There are many factors that may influence your performance and the way you deal with the questions. So of course this depends on individual experience, but this is the main insight for level 1. Now for the morning portion of the exam, for level 2 and also for the entire level 1. For the afternoon session, for the constructed response, all right, and I'm going to basically make a brand new slide on this. I recall that in one of those webinars of the prep provider that I used, Edge Designations, one of those webinars describing how the exam is structured and how you should approach it and all that. I remember that the person who led these webinars, which is one of my contacts on LinkedIn, is the head of Edge Designations, Russell Jude. I remember him mentioning that after you finish the morning session and you go into the afternoon session, you can relax. You can relax, not because you will be able to just sleep through all the exams, all the questions in the constructed response, but because you have a lot of time to answer them. And this was exactly the case. So for the afternoon session, constructed response, all right, this is not for the level 1, this is for level 2 response questions. You have a lot of time to answer the questions, and I think this does not make much sense because a candidate should always be able to finish the exam within a reasonable amount of time, all right, if he is prepared. But in that case, but in the afternoon session, you have, because these are about 12 questions, 13 questions, and so I would guess, on a rough estimate, you have around 8 to 10 minutes to answer each question. Now, this for me does not make any sense at all, because the question, the description of the question, the text of the question is not that long, and you only need to answer the questions with one or two sentences, or a calculation if it is required. And so 8 to 10 minutes per each question is far too long for you to be able to answer those questions. And so what's going to happen is that you have you have a lot of time to think about the answers, and you will always be able to review the answers many times. All right, and for me this is not the way it's supposed to be, because on one hand you have little time, very little time in the morning session, and in the afternoon you can almost take a siesta while going through the questions. And so the exam in this respect is quite a bit unbalanced. You should have more. It wouldn't hurt if you have 5 more minutes to answer the questions in the morning, and you would have, instead of 120 minutes in the afternoon, if you have like 80 minutes or 70 minutes, it would be more than enough. Because at the end of the day, I can't recall if this is the same always, but you have roughly, if I can recall correctly, 12 or 13 questions to answer in the afternoon. So and therefore why I mentioned that it's only 8 to 10 minutes to answer. You have on average 8 to 10 minutes to answer each question. And so basically this is, for me, this is a big issue, because it shouldn't be that way. In the CFA you have a reasonable amount of time for it. I would not say reasonable, the time limit is tight, of course, but if you are really well prepared, it's enough time for you to review the answers once and you're good. In this case, you have to basically rush through the morning session, and you can basically sit back and relax during the afternoon session, and you should not be able to do that. All right, and I would say also, of course, because of my the way I prepared for the exam, I would say that I struggled a lot on these questions, because I did not expect these questions to be as difficult as they were. All right, and I can even say that of all these questions, I recall that those were 3 groups, because these are 3 groups of constructed responses. One of them may have 3, I think most of them have 4 questions on each group, and so that gives us the 12. I don't know if sometimes they have 5. I can't recall correctly, but let's just assume that it's 12 questions, 3 groups, 4 questions per group. And I recall that even though I answered all of them, this is something that I'm going to write here. So I answered all questions, but, and this is key, but I was really unsure if I answered correctly around 5 or 6 questions. And why do I say this? You may think, oh, perhaps I'm just bragging myself because I have an excellent score on these topics, and even though, and how can you be struggling to answer these questions and then you get such a good performance? When I say that I struggle, is that I could not find the definite answer, and I just answered it. I just wrote something that I believed it was the case, all right? I did not answer the questions with the full confidence that I was right, all right? But because you don't get any penalties for simply writing something that is completely a nonsense, you just write. And that's what you should do. And you don't have the excuse of running out of time. This time you have plenty of time available in the afternoon session. And so you just write the answers, what you believe is right, and you just then wait for the results. But that is why I believe that this experience is somewhat strange, and you don't see this kind of experience, I think, on most professional designations. I don't know the other ones. I did the CFA, I did the ESG certificate from the CFA Institute, and I never found such imbalance in terms of the time that you have allotted for each of the sessions, all right? And for me, this is a bit strange. I think the CAIA should review this format, even taking some questions out from the morning session, or extending a bit the time limit to answer that morning session, and they should severely reduce the time available for the afternoon session, or they simply do what the CFA Institute does for the essay portion of the exam on level 3, which is no longer, because there is no longer constructive response in the morning and multiple choice questions in the afternoon. Now the questions are all mixed, but you just don't have 12 or 13 questions of constructive response. No, you have probably as many, not as many, but far more questions of constructive response in order to justify the allotted time that you have at your disposal. And so that is why I believe, for me, that this is something that should be addressed by the CAIA Association. Now, in terms of the exam itself, these are the most important tips and insights that I wanted to share with you. You have to be prepared that for this type of topics here, for the first and second, all right, the emerging topics and the ethics and regulation. For me, this is kind of strange. And why is that? Because I'm going to open another slide, because this is a different discussion here. For the topics 1 and 2, these are texts and articles available online, and the content and their content is described in a quite different way than the rest of the curriculum, all right? And so you will have to adapt your study method to be able to really get the knowledge from it. All right, and especially because these topics have no practice questions. In the CAIA platform where the curriculum is, right? And this makes it much more difficult for you to practice, all right? So it is much more difficult for you to practice or test your knowledge of those topics. All right. These are topics that usually you may know from other experiences that you have, but still it is difficult. Some texts are long, some texts and articles have like 15-20 pages. You need to go through those, and you really need to understand what is being talked about. And so, given the lack, and as I mentioned before, I decided not to focus that much on these two topics because of their low weight in the exam, lack of exercises to practice, right? And because the feel and the texture of that content, it is very different from the rest. Of the curriculum. But it is heavily tested on the afternoon portion, and because as you can see right here, these for sure take 10% of the exam, all right, and then some of these may not even show up. But given these are 12 questions, I recall that in my exam, a lot of the questions on the constructed response came from here. I would say the majority came from here. And so, yeah, because basically this accounts for more than 100%, so many of these topics simply did not show up. And because these come into the exam, I remember that these were very heavily tested on the afternoon. So that is why I struggled a lot, and that is why I say that you will have to prepare for them anyhow, all right? Anyway, right? But yeah, I believe these are also important considerations for you to take into account. But I would say also as well that for this particular portion of the exam, the afternoon, given the relatively lower importance in the exam overall, it's only 30%. You should not be too concerned whether you will be able to ace this portion of the exam. Most of your exam of the performance of the exam will count in the morning session. This one is a little bit lower, and even though of course you have to prepare for these questions anyway, because it will always work in your favor. If you cannot find the answer for them, just write what you believe is the closer you can get to the correct answer, and just hope that you will be able to get through, because many of these questions are not the focus of most of the candidates. Most of the candidates will also go for the topics 3 through 9, which is from the models to the volatility and complex strategies, and because of that, those questions most likely will also be a struggle for other candidates, and so that is why it all comes down to relative performance. And even though you may struggle, the ones will probably struggle at least as much as you, and so it is a concern, but it's not that big of a concern. I recall that when I came away from the exam, I recall thinking that it was the worst exam that I did apart from the level 3 exam, and yet I ended up having a good score, most likely because the other candidates simply were not prepared as well as I did. And so, yeah, in hindsight, it was an experience which was hectic, but considering my preparation and my relative performance, it ended up being all right. And yeah, so for the most part, yeah, this is it for this video. I would love to, of course, also get your feedback, and you can leave your questions and your comments in the comment section down below. Also, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And of course, I'm also available also on LinkedIn in case you need to discuss any of these topics a little bit more deeply. And yeah, just drop me a DM and I'll be sure to reach out to you next. But yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.